Hey, what's up? Hello, everyone. Welcome into Fantasy Filmball, the show where we turn movies into sports and sports into something we don't talk about here. My name is Matt.
My name is Dyl, and I think it's time for everyone to join us this year for our 2024 Best Picture Revisiting series, where we return to all 10 Best Picture nominees and talk about their nominations, their snubs, and just our overall thoughts with the films. And as always, we're going to welcome in a guest, and what better way to kick off this year than with the biggest film of 2023 and someone very near and dear to Matt.
Of course, so Ciarra.
That's me.
This is Ciarra.
I'm first? I didn't know I was first.
Yeah,
That's an honor.
You're the first one.
Thank you very much.
Wow, big honor.
Best movie of the year gets to go first.
Yeah, best person too. So,
Oh.
yeah, Ciarra is my fiance and a massive Greta Gerwig fan.
I thought you were going to say girl.
Yeah, also...
Massive girl.
Also, it is woman.
I am woman.
It is woman, yeah. Definitely...
But yes, I do love Greta. So.
Yeah, she's wearing the Greta Gerwig shirt, so...
Keep up the trend. Last year she had Ciarra Polly, so it makes sense.
I know.
This year.
This one has flowers. It's a little different, but...
It's fancy.
Yes.
It's fancier, so...
It is.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty important, I think, that, like... I mean, you and I are on this channel all year long, talking movies, talking everything, and when we talk about a movie like Barbie, which we have many times through the year... It's like a little bit of a sausage party on YouTube with like every channel is just men talking about Barbie. So I think it's nice to have Ciarra here to chat Greta Gerwig and talk about Barbie movie from the perspective of like a 20-something woman. Let's start off with Best Picture because of course Barbie is nominated in Best Picture and 7 other categories. So Best Picture, what are our general thoughts on this movie?
I feel like our guest should start us up. So, Ciarra, what are your general thoughts of Barbie?
I love Barbie so much. I think I love it more than I thought I would. Initially, like, hearing about it, I think I've just never really found a movie that connects to me as, like, a woman. I've found there's been a few of them for sure, but I feel like everyone grows up differently, but I feel like I just don't connect with any of like the girl movies or any like the chick flicks, I guess you could call them, because that's really all we have. Yeah. So going in to see Barbie, I was anticipating disappointment just because that's normally what female movies are, and then I was completely blown away, like in so many different ways. I knew that Greta would do it justice, but like it was everything that I could have wanted and more, and also not at all what I wanted, which was even better. Speaking of me not having movies like that, I remember when Matt first showed me Boyhood, he was like, this describes my childhood, like everyone I've known has been like, that's my life, I really fit into that, especially like being a white man. Like The Goonies, there were so many things of little boys growing up, and I was always like, I guess I'll watch My Little Pony, you know, like that's my version of it. So it was the first time I really felt like represented in a movie like that, especially on the second and third watch. I was like, whoa.
You were a huge fan of Lady Bird and Little Women. So like, what was your thought when you heard that Greta Gerwig was going to be doing a Barbie movie, especially because like, I know you didn't grow up with Barbies. You never played with Barbies as a kid. So like, what was your thought process on, okay, this director that I love, Lady Bird, Little Women, is now making a movie about something that I really don't care much about?
So first off, I have watched a majority of the other Barbie movies, the animated ones.
Oh, really?
Yes, because that is part of like girlhood sleepover, or at least it was in like mid 2000s. I've seen like the Barbie Nutcracker, Princess and the Pauper. Yeah. Yes, I've seen the Barbie Nutcracker more than I've like seen the actual Nutcracker, and I'm a dancer. So at first I was kind of like they're classics, like cinema at its best, but also they're Barbie animated movies, like straight, it's like the Disney sequels is what I'll relate them to, like the Disney straight to DVD sequels, you know, not Lion King 1.5, that's the best one, but like Cinderella 3.
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
Oh,
it's
Aladdin,
fine.
Aladdin 6, Jafar does his taxes.
Yeah, it's that kind of level. Like, they're great, but they're not great.
Big surprise.
Long story short.
Big surprise.
I don't know.
Big surprise movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's us. What do you think, Dylan?
So yeah, I mean, you mentioned you had seen Barbie 3 times. One of my favorite things about this series is having to revisit all these movies. So this was time number 4 for me. And I feel like every time I've watched this movie, my feelings have changed. The first time around, I was like, I like this. I don't love it. It has a pacing issue. Time 2 watching it, I loved it so much more. All my problems went away. Time 3, I'm like, okay, it's still cool, but is it like the best thing in the world? But this time around, I really did enjoy it. Again, it went all the way up to a 9, which is the highest I've given it so far. And I just think it's so hilarious. I think the satire of the opening act, the witty banter between the Barbies and the Kens. Ryan Gosling has some funny, like some of the funniest moments of the year, which I know is kind of like basic for the dude to say the dude had the funniest moments of the Barbie movie. But I just think everything in this film just works so well, besides one little issue that we'll talk about a little bit later. But overall, I think the performances are great. This is one of, if not the best ensembles of the year. And the production design, the costumes, the tech elements, the makeup and hairstyling all works. I'll go into specific performances later. But overall, Barbie is a movie that I very much do enjoy. I very much do appreciate. And something while rewatching a lot of these Best Picture nominees is what I'm finding out is this is probably my personal favorite for Best Picture. Even if I think 2019 has a better lineup, I think this year's movies are better from top to bottom than that year was.
Very interesting.
Lots of variety.
Yeah, I will say I had a different experience from you in rewatching it, because the first time I watched Barbie, I was like, I like elements of it. There's some things that I feel a little iffy about. I feel like the capitalistic nature of the whole movie is kind of taking away from it. And then I rewatched it with Ciarra's cousins, who are 9 and 11 years old girls. And watching it alongside two girls who have never heard a lot of these things before, seeing what it meant for them to be told, you matter, you are enough, you cannot be told that you can't be who you want to be because you can be anything. Seeing it with them really heightened the experience in my mind. It just was so important to hear those things, you know. And I've done a lot of reading. None of this is like new stuff for me, and it's not going to be new stuff for anyone who has gone to a university and been in any theoretical classes that talk about feminism at all. But the fact of the matter is there's a lot of people who haven't heard any of this, and it's going to be the first time they're exposed to these things. So in that way, Barbie is like Feminism 101. It's not complex, but it's important and impactful to hear. That said, after that amazing experience seeing it a second time, recently watching it a third time, I liked it a little bit less. I'm a little bit closer to my feelings originally on it, where I see all of those important, impactful elements of it, but I do still feel like the commercialism of it all, the like, ooh, we're Mattel, but we want you to think we're really cool, so you go and buy our stuff. I feel like that's a bit more prevalent than I felt on the second watch of it. So I've dropped a little bit on the film. It went from a 10 out of 10 to an 8 out of 10, and it's still a really strong 8 out of 10. I think it's a blast and a half to watch. There's just some issues that I have with like the delivery of it all, and how at its core, even though it is this Trojan horse of a movie that's like, listen to this message, girls, you are enough. You can be what you want to be. It's still a commercial. And I don't feel like it fully escapes that.
The way that things are sold to us is very much like, this is going to make you the woman, and this is going to make you like the coolest, and here's the thing that all the girls have, and which like can go from like toys to now it's like, look at you, you strong, independent woman. You're so cool, and you wear mascara. Like, it's a lot of like, okay, you're like really just screaming like, look, we're feminist. And I feel like this movie took that and kind of ran with it in a way of like, yeah, look at this, like the Barbie, like the Depression Barbie is like, wow, and like, look at all these things. Like, we're like cool and hip. I feel like it did it in a way that it was making fun of itself.
So what it sounds like is it's something with the screenplay, which was one of the nominations here for Barbie, where originally it was campaigning an original, now it's an adapted. That's a whole debate in itself. So I guess that's the first thing we should talk about. So where do we think it is? Is it an original? Is it an adapted? It's adapting from a toy. Those toys have been in movies, have been in TV shows. These characters aren't created by Gerwig, created by Noah Baumbach, so therefore I would put it into adapted. But where do both of y'all stand on that?
Coming from someone who's read maybe half a screenplay total in her life, but like I can see them, you know? I think it's totally adapted. I don't really, like, I get how it's an original screenplay, but anyone or any idea that comes from something, like even a character's name, like to its core, that's adapted to me. She did not create the toy Barbie, therefore it's adapted. And there, I mean, like I said, there's some real awesome animated Barbie movies. Those are not original. This is not original. It's an original idea. It's an original conception of what is Barbie. But I see why it's adapted. It literally says Mattel at the first, like right before it says Barbie.
I will say I have problems with placements of things in general. And I would say this should be categorized the same way that any biopic is, because yes, there is something that this is being based on. It is based on a toy. However, it's not based on any literary material. You can look at the Barbie movies, but this isn't based on the character of Barbie from the Barbie movies. It's based on an idea. It's based on an IP. But that IP does not have a character. It doesn't have a voice. It's not literary material. It's essentially the same as like making a Leonard Bernstein movie. And yet, for some reason, a Leonard Bernstein movie based on research about Leonard Bernstein's life is original, and yet this is adapted. But yeah, in terms of the screenplay, I mean, this is undeniably the reason for the film's success, because you hear Barbie movie and you're not thinking Oscar juggernaut, biggest film of the year. You're thinking like, oh, it's probably going to be like a goofy, like emoji movie style thing. Not even like a girly movie.
I will say, like, to some family, and everyone I was talking to at the time was a man, and I mentioned Barbenheimer was what we were talking about, and all the men were like so excited for Oppenheimer, love that story, so cool, blah blah. And then I said like, yeah, like, are you going to do the Barbenheimer thing? And they were like, the Barbie movie's for girls. And I was like, Oppenheimer's for men? Like, that, saying that doesn't make sense. So saying Barbie's
it's like
made
a
for...
cinematic Happy Meal
It's
toy.
like, yeah, it basically made me feel like they were like, that's for the ladies. Like, pat, we're gonna go where the big boys are, which is like, number one, also like, Marvel movies are just also toys, so why are we... Anyways.
I mean, I kind of mentioned a little bit before, the screenplay is one of my favorite parts about Barbie. I just love the comedy that this film's working with. I think it's funny each time around, and that's a really interesting thing with comedies. Every time you watch them, like, do they still hold up on a second viewing, on a third viewing, on a fourth viewing? At least to me, Barbie gets funnier on each watch. You can pick up on more of the jokes, little things in the background, some costumes, characters who aren't the focal points, who are just kind of there. I think my favorite joke of the whole movie is this one sequence where Barbie and Ken are kind of arguing with each other after Ken changes Barbie Land to Kingdom. Ryan Gosling, Kingsley Benadir's Kens are kind of just dancing, and they're not the focal point of the scene, but they're just dancing, and I don't know, something about that made me like laugh out loud in the theater, and I just love stuff like that. On for the other stuff, something that Matt was talking about before, the messaging of the film, while yes, maybe it is a little bit basic, but I also think something else said is very true, where this is a lot of people's first experience with it, not just for women, but for men as well, who just think it is just for girls. So they're getting to see it in not a preachy type of way, but in like, hey, let's poke fun of it, let's joke about it, let's all dive into it right here. And sometimes it really works. I think the ending of this film is phenomenal. It hits every beat you want. Other points, it may be a little bit too blunt, like the America Ferrera speech, but still has very good stuff in that speech. And I think overall this is one of the best screenplays of the year. I definitely think it's my personal highlight of this film, but I fully understand why some people think it maybe is a little bit too much or isn't doing enough.
Yeah, to the point of favorite lines, favorite moments in the script, you're so right. The dialogue in this is just like so exceptional. It's so good. I think my favorite line is, "I'm not a fascist. I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce." Love that. I also love how will they know? How will we know if which Kens are attacking if I say Ken at 4:00? Because, my dude, we attack at 10. Get the morning waves.
I was going to say, just to go off of that, another thing I really appreciate about the screenplay is how, I mean, maybe this plays into the originality of it all, is it reinvents the characters of Ken and Barbie. They're not the people that you expect when you first think of like, oh, who's a Ken, who's a Barbie? Like, sure, maybe Margot Robbie, like the film even points out, and Ryan Gosling, but the way they act is not how you think a Ken and Barbie would act. I think Ken is very much playing on the trope of the broy bro, the himbo or whatever, well. And you just go about it, and I just think the way they go about the character character, and there's multiple versions of Ken, so it's not like each Ken is the same. They each have slight differences. You have the cocky one with Simu Liu, you have the complete dumb one with Ryan Gosling, you have like the shy, bashful one of Kingsley Ben-Adir. There's just so many types of Kens, there's so many types of Barbies where you get to hit on so many different comedic tropes, so it never feels like you're just like beating you over the head with the same joke over and over again. They're all so creative, they're all so different.
Talking about beating us over the head with the same joke over and over, though, here's one thing that bugs me in the script. They overuse the joke of Barbie says something with very complex words and confuses everyone else. They use that upwards of 10 times, where Barbie will be like, she'll say a string of like theoretical thoughts, or like they'll make mention of like Proust Barbie, and you'll be like, but who's that joke for? And also, like, you've done that bit so many times. Even the joke where they cut to the banner outside of Barbie's house, and it's like, good luck repairing the membrane that separates their reality from ours so you don't get cellulite. Like, there's so many jokes where it's just all about the wording being ridiculously complicated. And that joke definitely grew a little old on me at times.
I'm wearing some Barbie branding right now. Production design, costume design. I mean, I think my shirt speaks for itself. I think the costume design of this movie is pretty cool. And the production design is very grand. The recreations of the sets, of the costumes, of just of it all. I feel like I don't have the proper words to describe. Like, obviously you see the trailer, like, oh yeah, that looks cool, but when you get into the movie, it's just so much more. And it's not just Barbie's playset, it's also, or it's not just Barbie's dream house, it's also the transition sequence from Barbie world to the real world. I think there's some pretty cool production design choices in the real world, even though people say it looks kind of basic. I think the costume designs for Barbies, for Kens, even for some of the people in the real world are all very impressive, eye-popping. I mean, we said this in our last prediction episode. When you look at best costume design or most influential costume design of a year, Barbie may be the most influential costume design of like this decade. You go anywhere, you see people dressing as Barbie, people dressing as Ken. And not even just one Ken. There's like 5 Kens. There's like 5 Barbie different outfits where like, oh yeah, you instantly recognize, hey, it's from this movie. And to me, that just shows how impressive both of these works would be. And I think that they both are very worthy for their future eventual Oscar wins.
And even to that, like, if someone wears just a pink shirt, everyone's like, Barbie. Like, everyone says, yeah, hi, Barbie. If you're wearing pink, especially, like, I work with kids. If I wear a pink shirt, they're like, yeah, Barbie. Like, and I'm like, it's the color pink. But she literally redefined the color pink and also kind of, like, now makes it cool in not, like, a girly way, if that makes sense. It's like, when you wear pink as a woman, it's like, hell yeah, Barbie. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, I mean,
it's kind of cool.
The design elements did make such an impact on the film and and its cultural impact in general, because I feel like so many people have such nostalgia rooted around the play sets, rooted around the different costumes, and they lovingly make tribute to all of those things. They homage, like, you know, the bell bottoms and the mink coat and everything. Like, everything feels so iconic. And is it creating all of these things? No, but it's curating them, it's selecting them, and it's recreating them in scale. And I think that's really, really well done. Just like making this look cohesive, making it all go together instead of just looking like a mishmash of things dumped out from a toy box is really, really an achievement in itself.
I think my favorite, not my favorite thing, there's so many things about the costumes that I just absolutely adore. But I think one of my favorite things is that every Barbie and every Ken looks like they fit their clothes perfectly. And I mean that in that, like, original Barbie, stereotypical Barbie, if you want to say that. Everyone always said, like, I remember so much growing up, especially when, like, my friends were kind of rebelling against, like, being a girl. They were like, well, that Barbie can't even stand up. If she was real, she wouldn't be able to stand up because she couldn't support herself. The way that Barbie looks wasn't what my dad wanted my sister and I to grow up thinking we had to be. He wanted us to know that we could just be whatever we wanted. And I think the coolest thing, Margot Robbie is gorgeous, like drop dead gorgeous. So of course the clothes look great on her, but I love that every other Barbie and every other Ken, no matter like their skin color, skin tone, like hair, all of that, weight, they looked good in their clothes. And that was so cool because you think of Barbie, you think of skinny, blonde bimbo, but everyone looked good in their clothes. And I think that's what was cool too.
So, I mean, kind of going off of that, I think it would be cool to point out what all of our favorite costumes would be. Because I think picking one is just hard. Because, like, for me, the one that jumps out right away is when Ken and Barbie first go to the real world. Their rollerblade outfit, as well as their first, like, cowboy cowgirl type outfit. But I really, really like the Ken short shorts when they're having their little beach off battle. And then I also really like a lot of, like, weird Barbie's outfits throughout, where, like, you can tell, like, they used to be super pretty, super gorgeous, but because she's been played with a little bit too much, they just have a little bit of like an odd feel to them.
Yeah, that's a really good catch
That's
too,
true,
because
yeah.
they do everything to make Weird Barbie look authentic to everyone's Weird Barbies. Which, like, I didn't even have Barbies, but, like, going over to friends' houses who did have Barbies, like, you'd see the Weird Barbies. There's always a Weird Barbie.
In my childhood, obviously didn't have Barbies, but I had My Little Ponies, and one of my mom's rules was we weren't allowed to cut their hair because it wouldn't grow back. So, like, my mom was you will not have a weird pony. And so I didn't have a weird pony. No weird ponies, but that's, if I hadn't had a mom like that, I think I probably would have.
You absolutely would.
I would have had a nice mohawk pony or something.
Yeah.
Okay, I think, which is totally going against why, like, you would think that Barbie was nominated, I'm going to say the dress that Margot wears in the not the dream sequence, but when she's holding,
Yeah,
you know, the yellow,
simple,
gorgeous, simple dress, because I think I love that she looks just as beautiful as the beginning. Like, it was just, that is just seamless. I also just love simplicity. I mean, I'm all for, like, super amazing, cool wardrobes, but that simple dress was it just said so much.
Okay, my answer is going to be very stereotypically male, because I think the mink coat and winged sunglasses for Ken is so
When he has both
funny.
or just one pair of glasses?
The whole getup with the bandana, the bleach blonde hair, the mink coat, and the 2 sunglasses and rings on. It's so awful, and I love it so much.
Only Ryan Gosling could pull that off, and
Ryan Gosling could pull that off, and he pulls it off with such, like, ridiculousness.
You don't even notice what he's wearing because it just makes sense.
Because he's so goofy that it's just like you don't even think about what a goofball he looks like. But that costume feels so iconic. It's so funny because it's just so dumb.
Well, speaking of dumb things, my job is loving musicals, and Barbie's kind of like a musical. There's a lot of song and dance numbers throughout. So we had 2 that got nominated for Best Original Song. We had I'm Just Ken and What Was I Made For? Arguably could say the 2 biggest songs of the movie. I mean, you can make a case for Dance the Night, and there's some other ones like the Lizzo song at the beginning that I think really stand out and add to, like, when you're watching the film, they are the key songs from the movie. So I guess my question to both of y'all would be is what song, if they could only be one, what song would you pick? And between the 3, which one would you leave out?
I think What Was I Made For, just based on what it was written about, and, like, anytime Billie Eilish opens her mouth, it's just like, yes, I understand exactly what you mean, and you can just hear her emotions so strongly in all of her music, but especially in that song. And the first time I actually heard the song was I watched the music video, because I saw that she had released, like, a Barbie music video, and I was like, that's okay. And I remember I clicked on it and I watched it by myself. It was on the big screen, and I just kind of had, like, a moment of, like, okay, normally I don't get music videos. They're very conceptual and confusing at times, but I totally got what that one was about, and so it was just a special experience to hear that song for the first time. But I'm Just Ken, it's just so funny. If I could take one out, it would be Dance the Night.
For me, What Was I Made For is my favorite song from the movie, for sure. I think it's beautifully written. It's so simple. And I love the way that the theme of the song is interwoven throughout the score. How there, at any moment where Barbie is in touch with her humanity, any moment where she realizes that she wants to be alive, you know, the moment where she sees the old woman on the bench and realizes, I want to grow old. I want to be a human. And yeah, the theme plays there in just a really subtle, soft way. And it's woven through the film so beautifully. And it's just, the impact of that number is beautiful.
I cry every time during that sequence.
Oh yeah, it's just stunning, because it's like, this is what it is to be human.
Yeah.
This is what
and
it
to be
is.
like a woman.
Yeah, exactly.
To be,
you know,
a girl.
I mean, I can't say exactly, because I'm Just Ken is so fun. But yeah, it's not my favorite song, is what I'm gonna say. I'm not a huge Dance the Night guy either. It's a fun pop song, but it doesn't have much weight to it. I think if we're honoring I'm Just Ken, it's for the visuals that accompany it and less for the song itself. In a similar way to like Natu Natu last year, where I think that award was partially for the dance that came with it and the scene that accompanied. But yeah, I'm Just Ken is really a special moment in the movie.
I think that's why I love Dance the Night. I mean, I just said I didn't love Dance the Night, but I like those sequences so much as a dancer. Like seeing Jennifer White and Lisa Willems' choreography during those. Like, the Ken sequence is just like the Dream Ballet, but on steroids. And like doing this, like I don't... It's so my goofy, favorite, though. I think, because it just is like, yes, like as a dancer and a woman, it's like, what? You know, represented.
Mm-hmm. See, I'm kind of like a mix of both of y'all. I think Dance the Night's the most fun song of these. If I'm going to listen to one outside of the movie, I'm always going to be picking that song. But in the movie, I think it's not poorly executed. It's just my least favorite of the three. I think the choreography during that sequence is really good. I just don't think Greta shoots it very well. I think she either holds on a specific shot or puts the camera in weird places where
she's not
it doesn't look the best. That's true. And the comedy moments of that song work, like when Gosling Ken talks to Kingsley Benadir Ken, gives him his wine glass and like walks his way in, and then all the Ken's trying to impress for Barbie. Those comedy moments work, but for like what the camera is doing. But the rest of it, I'm like, whatever. So if I'm an Oscar voter, I would also leave that one out, like what they did, just because if I'm voting for a song, I want a song that's actually in the movie. And I think that What Was I Made For, as Matt was talking about, the themes placed throughout like the Everything Everywhere song like last year, where it very much amplifies not just that song, but the rest of the film. And then I'm Just Ken, I think. But one thing that I think most people may not agree with, because we all agree with the songs there, is the Oscar nominations for who got nominated for acting and who didn't. Because in Best Supporting Actress, America Ferrera found her way in. I know when we first saw the movie, Matt and I were like, there's a world where she gets in. And then Precursor started going, and we're like, okay, maybe not. She hasn't gotten what we expected her to get so far. And then at the end of the day, she got in. On Line seems to either be a I love it or I hate it type nomination. On this For Fiona Barbie, one thing I was really looking at is how did I like her performance knowing that she's nominated? Is this like an Oscar nominee performance? And first thing I would say is if I were to pick a supporting actress to put her in the lineup, this year's super weak. I probably wouldn't put one in, but my favorite of the bunch was Kate McKinnon as Weird Barbie. I think she nails the different humor that she has to do for that role, because all the other Barbies have a specific type of humor, where Kate McKinnon's is so far out of left field. And she's someone who I normally don't really like as an actress, but in this film, I really did like what she was doing. But for America Ferrera, I think she's really good. I just think that she doesn't really do much outside of the one monologue scene where she's kind of just doing normal mom stuff like, hey, happy, sad, let's do a car action scene. And then her conclusion also feels a little bit underwhelming in terms of like a full character arc. But I'm not mad at the nomination. This year's category was super weak, so like it's not like she took out someone I really loved that was actually in the race, but it also wouldn't be someone I would throw in like, oh my gosh, we need to have her nominated.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I think she's doing really well in what she's doing, which is essentially being the James Marsden of the film. And what I mean by that is there's so many movies where James Marsden is the human companion to the wacky cartoon creature that comes from the real world. Sonic, Hop. James Marsden is always that character, and America Ferrera is playing that. And I think she does a good job. But that said, I don't get why people are so upset at her nomination when Emily Blunt is nominated for the exact same thing, when it's like you do your job for the rest of the movie and then you have one scene where you kind of absolutely kill it, and that's what you're nominated for. But for some reason, everyone is mad about America Ferrera and no one cares about the Emily Blunt nomination. I would say I actually prefer America Ferrera to Emily Blunt's work.
Like, if I thought back to her character, I'm like, she was drunk and sad. And I know that, and she's a mom. And like, a lot of the time I feel like when men write women who are moms, they're like, she's a mom. Isn't that enough? Like, she's a mom. And it's like, yeah.
It defines her.
It defines her.
It defines my mom.
That's... Yep. And that's what I love about America Ferrera's character and performance and everything, is that she's more than that. And she's a mom, but she's also just so much more. And she realizes, like, she goes from being, like, desk job, quiet, mousy, like, does weird drawings of Barbie, to being, like, a strong woman who her daughter looks up to and can not stand up to her daughter, but can kind of be like, hey, I'm more than just your mom. And so I feel like she has the same amount as Emily Blunt, but the quality that she has is just far beyond.
One thing I think a lot of people will agree on is Ryan Gosling getting in for supporting actor, because like I said before, he has a lot of my favorite moments in this movie. And honestly, he has probably my favorite supporting actor performance in this bunch. I need to rewatch Oppenheimer to see if I like him. I guess to each of y'all, how do y'all feel about Ryan Gosling as Ken? Is this his career best work? Is he just great? Or are you a little bit more lukewarm on him?
What came to my mind, which I also think goes into what we were just talking about, is America Ferrera is in a comedy and Emily Blunt's in a drama. And same with Robert Downey Jr. And Ryan Gosling. And I think that's where the comparisons sometimes come, is people see comedy and they're like, they're just acting like themselves. Like, they're just being funny.
Yeah.
But
how hard can it be to be funny?
As an actor, I can say it is so fucking hard to do comedy. There's so much more technique behind it than there is to drama. Both are equally challenging, but like, I have struggled with comedy for years. And seeing someone just so effortlessly do comedy without doing the comedy is just like especially comparing to like Mark Ruffalo, I could feel him doing the comedy a little bit, which it is a Yorgos Lanthimos movie. You kind of have to do the comedy, but Ryan, I feel like it was so genuine. Like, he was thrashing his body around like a floppy fish, and I was like, you couldn't make that up. You couldn't tell an actor, like, hey, flop around like the 40-whatever-year-old man you are, and, you know, for the camera. And he just did it so effortlessly and so wonderfully that I feel like he really deserves it, and I feel like I wish he could win.
Yeah, Ryan Gosling is one of very few actors. I'd say him and Emma Stone are on the same playing field, which is great because they're constant collaborators, but they're on the same playing field of actors who absolutely do not take themselves seriously at all. And it allows them to give performances that are just so resonant because they give their all. They're not worried about looking like a total goof. And that's what Ryan Gosling looks like in this role. And that makes him so endearing. Even though he's a villain, even though he is the bad guy of the film, he is just endlessly entertaining. He is so engaging to watch because Ryan Gosling is just not afraid of looking like an idiot. He's not afraid of being the himbo. Yeah. And he adds emotion to the role where most actors would just play the goofiness. Yeah. You know, there's
like
moments...
the dumb man.
The moments where you see his vulnerability are so beautiful. Like, I think my favorite Ryan Gosling moment in the whole performance is when he is asking if he can stay overnight. And he's like, because we're boyfriend-girlfriend. And... she's like, it's ladies' night every night, and he goes, ha ha ha, right as always.
You stole it. That's my favorite one as well. I've been reciting that the whole last week since watch is like, right as always.
It's because you can feel the pain. It's a role where you can feel how he knows he's been mistreated. He knows that things aren't right in this version of the world.
But that's just what it is.
It's just what it is.
Yeah.
And at the core of the film, Barbie is not a film about... I've heard so many people say it's an anti-men film. It's not. It's a film that's anti-power structure. It's pro-woman, but it's also...
doesn't mean it has to be anti-man.
Exactly. And it's a film about power structures and how when you put one group in charge as a ruling class, they are inevitably going to mistreat the oppressed class. And in so many moments in Ryan Gosling's performance, we get that. We see that this is a dude who has been mistreated his entire life.
Like I said before, you stole my line, so I'll give another line, is when Barbie first sees all of the men at work, it's like, oh, it's a construction site, there must be women here. And like they make jokes at her, and she's like, oh, I don't have a vagina, he doesn't have a penis, we have no genitals. And then he goes, I have all the genitals, and then rollerblades away. That, I think, was another just great line reading from him, because like I said before, gonna sound like a broken drum. Ryan Gosling is my star of the film, and like again, the man saying that ha ha ha, speaking my truth, whatever. But he just nails what you want out of this character. He's so goofy, so unself-serious, and so lovable, like Matt was talking a little bit about before. And I guess to give some love to the other Kins here, Kingsley Ben-Adir and Simu Liu also have, I think, really hilarious Kins. They each nail their particular set of styles that I was kind of talking about before, because Kingsley Ben-Adir, I just watched all the High School Musical movies for the first time. He has this Chad energy to him where he's always there for his Troy.
Yes!
He's there no matter what. Instead of having a
have
basketball. Instead of a basketball, he has that jukebox in that one scene. He's talking about flamingos. He's just here. He's doing whatever it can to make sure that his boy stays safe. And who could have guessed that Simu Liu plays a douchebag so well? I couldn't do that. But this is the Barbie movie, so I feel like we have to talk about the giant snub of Margot Robbie, who I think knocked out of this park. And regardless of the whole Oscar debate of her being in, her being out, I think this will go down as her most iconic performance of her career. You won't be able to think about Margot Robbie without Barbie, and you won't be able to think of Barbie without Margot Robbie. So I think that is worth more than any award could be, because she's great in this. And I remember when the movie first came out, everyone like didn't have her in for lead actress, and I remember Matt saying, well, if we have Barbie in like top 2 for picture, we have it in for screenplay, we have it in for director, we have it in for this, for that, why can't we have Margot Robbie? And then she started to get nominated everywhere, and at the end of the day, she did miss. So I guess my questions for y'all would be is, what were y'all thoughts on her take as Barbie, and as well, why do you think she ended up missing at the end of the day?
Mm-hmm. I loved her performance as Barbie because it was so complex but so simple, especially coming from like an acting standpoint. The way that she did the over-the-top emotion and matched it so well with the genuine human, like at your core reactions is just like magic. And it's very similar to Emma Stone, I would say. The way that she just perfectly marries the two. What I think the difference is between the two is that Barbie is a woman's film, as the media's kind of said, and it's a comedy. And again, going back to what I said earlier,
too, but it's less of a mainstream.
But it's not a yeah, exactly, and it's, you know, it's got boobs in it, so there we go. This one does not. They don't have genitals, so
ask Joe Coy. He might have a different answer about this movie having boobs in it.
The fact that it's a comedy and it's also a woman's film, and a lot of, I mean, they're getting better, but a lot of the Oscar voters are male or have only really, same with us, have only really ever watched like male-heavy films. Women don't get featured, and women's storylines such as this don't get featured ever, if ever, and if so, then rarely. And I think that all of that put together is kind of why Margot was snubbed, is because, well, she's just Barbie. She's just playing a doll. It's like, well, but at the same time, you know, Emma Stone's just playing a child. She's just, it's the exact same thing, but I think it's more acceptable because, you know, it's coming from, not that Yorgos is like heavily male-dominating kind of films, but it's coming from a male perspective. There is the, you know, naked elements of the film, and there is that, you know, it's just, in my brain it makes sense basically, but I think you could probably speak better.
If anything, I would actually say it's less about the women-centric elements of the film, because I mean it's the best actress category. She's up against other women who are in films that are dominated by women, right? Like, she missed out for Naiad, which is a film about a 60-year-old woman swimming, and like, if anything, that's a story that typically would be like overlooked by a lot of people, but what I would say it's more about is that it's seen as childish, right? Her playing the doll, a lot of people are like, but she's just a doll. It's just like a silly, stupid role. Why do we have to award that? But I would ask the same thing of like, if we're okay with Ryan Gosling and we're giving validation to that role, despite the fact that he is just playing a doll, and yet Margot Robbie is like, well, she didn't need a nomination, she was just a doll. If anything, I would say her accomplishments as an actor are even greater because she's just playing a doll. She had to create a character off of a slab of plastic. She had to look at this, go, how would this doll act? And then she had to subvert that and say, how would this doll, who is a slab of plastic that has the best day every day, it has no emotion but happy, doesn't know anything except high heels, eat hot chip, and lie, you know, how do you turn that into a full, well-rounded character? And what she does that's so beautiful in this film, and is the reason why behind Emma Stone, she is my favorite performance of the year in any category. Margot Robbie makes you believe that she is experiencing emotions for the very first time. By the time we're 13, we've experienced every feeling we're going... Yeah, every feeling we're going to experience, we've experienced by a certain age. You feel things still, but they're just versions of the things you've already felt. And with Margot Robbie's performance, when she cries, you believe that those are the first tears that have ever rolled down her cheeks. When she has these revelations of anger, of sadness, when she feels depressed, you truly believe that this is the first time this woman has ever felt any of these things. And that blended with the innocence of this plastic doll is brilliant. She definitely deserved a nomination, but that said, hearing some people be like, oh, it's sexist that she didn't get in, it's more just a bias against the fact that it's a kid's film.
Yeah,
but her work is so mature.
And I would kind of carry that over to the Best Director category as well with Greta Gerwig, who I fully understand why she could be in, why she could be out for Best Directing. I think it really just comes down to who your competition is each year, and that goes back to the Little Women year as well. When there's other films that are a lot stronger across the board that may appeal more to the international voting branch, it's going to be harder to crack into that stuff. Because 2019, you had some of the most legendary filmmakers of all time, like Martin Scorsese, like Quentin Tarantino. Those are 2-year slots. You had the eventual Best Director winner of Bong Joon-ho for Parasite. You had the runner-up for Sam Mendes in 1917. There's 4 of your 5 slots there. Little Women, I would say, was in the 5 to 7 range. But a movie that was definitely top 5 winning multiple Oscars was Joker, a film that very much played well to BAFTA, a lot of international voting audiences. He makes it in over Gerwig. This year, we kind of have the same thing. We have Christopher Nolan, who is going to be the Best Director winner, kind of like Parasite was that year. Mm-hmm. Legendary filmmakers like Martin Scorsese back again. And then you have 3, I would say, very international skewing films that are also across-the-board players with Glazer and Zone, Justin Trier in Anatomy of a Fall, and Yorgos Lanthimos and Poor Thing. So again, it's just like the nature of the beast. When you only have 5 slots and there's hundreds of directors who are eligible and there's at least 10 you can make a case to be in, someone has to be on the outside looking in. And I think that maybe she would be in my personal 5, but I definitely think that she would be in my personal 6, type 7. She's creating so much for this movie, but I think that kind of goes to her other nomination of screenwriting, where that is more of the creation aspect of differentiating Barbie from a lot of other stuff what we may have thought of coming into this film, where her direction is very impressive, but isn't what we're coming away from the movie thinking about, at least for me, but maybe y'all feel a little bit differently.
I guess I know you have a lot to say on this, so I'll try to make my thoughts very quick. I think that this snub shows, if anything, less sexism in the branch, because Justine Triet still did get a nomination. It shows less of that and more of a general snobbiness. The fact that the director's branch routinely, year after year, will snub blockbuster films, will snub big directors, because they don't view the work as being important enough. I just don't see how... what did Greta Gerwig not do with this? She created an entire world that it feels definitive. She balances tone in a way that is effortless, in a way that feels very similar to what the Daniels did in Everything Ever All at Once last year, where she balances that comedy, she balances the thematic weight of the film, and she also broke so many records as a female director, making this massive spectacle of a film. But we see spectacle films miss the directing category every year, like Denis Villeneuve for Dune, for example. Or I think one of the 2 actually biggest examples would be Steven Spielberg for Jaws in 1975, where the director's branch just did not take Jaws seriously, while most other categories did. Additionally, Inception, Christopher Nolan. Christopher Nolan is now a part of the club. He's now seen as prestigious enough. But for a time, the director's branch didn't see Christopher Nolan as being prestigious enough to award. And yes, Greta Gerwig does have a nomination in Best Director for Lady Bird, so she could be part of the club, but I think it's the fact that she's making these blockbusters now, and now they're like, but it's not serious work. And eventually, I believe, 10 years down the road, I think she'll have her Oppenheimer moment where she will be really carried above, and no matter what type of film she's making, they will really award her. They will laud her for the work that she's doing. But right now, she's being treated like Spielberg. She's being treated like Christopher Nolan, and it's just, they're looking down on blockbusters. That's just how it feels to me.
Yeah, I had an interesting reaction. I normally don't feel like super one way or the other about nominations, and but for some reason it was when you guys were recording your reactions to not predictions, but reactions to
the nominations,
I felt this like huge amount of sadness, and I couldn't quite figure out why, and I just really felt sad. And after you guys finished your call, I remember Matt asking like, well, what did you think to all the nominations? And it just kind of all came out, and I honestly don't even really remember what I said because it's been a bit. And
it
also,
ruined
like,
your day is what I'd say.
It really just
even later
me.
In the evening, I was like, is everything all right? Like, is this the Gerwig snub? And it was.
It's not that, I know all the reasons that not everyone's going to make it and all the reasons that she didn't make it. But for some reason, it was just like this woman, especially this woman did everything. She did the whole entire thing. Everyone talks about what an amazing director she was.
She became a household name.
Household name. She, from the art department to the production to everyone on that set, every single time they were interviewed was just like, Greta Gerwig was everything. She was the best director I've ever worked with. She was this, she was that, she was this. And all the names that were on that movie said that about her. And they've worked with countless directors. And she did everything. She got, and, billion-dollar movie, first woman to ever have anything remotely close to that. It just kind of felt like if women do all that and we still can't make it in with this, like, once-in-a-lifetime feeling kind of movie, what do we need to do to be a part of this?
You have to be French.
Yes, that's a little different. But, like, what else do we need to do to be a part of this? And the Oscars always say, we're doing this and that, to especially representation for people of color, which I, of course, cannot say anything to because I am white. But to representing women, it's just like, it just kind of felt like a pat on the head a bit of like, well, look at all these great men who have done all these movies, and like, the men went boom with all these movies, and they had all the great writing and all of that. So, of course, they got in. But hey, you got a woman in there, you're fine. And that comment, I don't know why, I've never been like, oh, that bugs me. But that comment, I was like, great. Yes, there's one woman, and that's why I should be not mad, and I will go sit down, and I will, listen to this club again. And for some reason, it just really irked me, and it still kind of does. Like, and that's where the gap is like, yes, I hear that you want women to make more film, and I hear all the great awards you're doing to, like, see her and all of the, like, yes, she can. But what are you doing to support us? And clearly, someone who was given that couldn't even do it. It felt devastating. Like, is this ever even going to happen? Or is it always just going to be the boys club where there's one slot for, like, a woman? And yes, there is a woman in there this year, and thank God. And also, like, an international film, like, all of the reasons that Justine Triet deserves to be there. But it was just, like, you can't say that she can't be in there because there was already a woman, or the other important men made real good films too.
It makes me think of the Ruth Bader Ginsburg quote when she said, when will there be enough women on the Supreme Court for you? And she said, when it's all women. That's when it's enough, because there's been all men. And so, like, why is it a problem? And so I guess what it comes down to is, like, people being like, oh, you're not allowed to be mad because they nominated a woman, is like, it does feel like there's one slot reserved, and we can't do more than that. Except we did do more than that in 2020.
One time they did do it once.
Yeah, back in the 70s, they had a female CEO. Mattel had a female CEO back in the 70s.
And as we were watching Barbie, I was like, there's so much in my reaction to Greta not being nominated that's in this film. Like, that moment, I was like, that's what it feels like. I was like, that's what it feels like, Matt. Is like, we had a woman. I'm a son of a mother. It's like, okay.
Yeah. Christopher Nolan is a son of a mother.
Mm-hmm. It's like, that's
Jonathan Glazer is a nephew to an aunt.
It's like, that's wonderful, but like, even down to just saying a mother, it's like, okay.
Martin Scorsese has a daughter.
Oy. Yeah. Needless
Yeah,
to
he
say,
does.
I had a lot of feelings about it, and I still have a lot of feelings about it, but I know that, and it's sad, like, I'm like, but again, what can I do?
So that's going to bring us to our new part of our revisiting series this year, where we're going to have our guests do their preferential ballot, rank the 10 Best Picture nominees. So I guess the first question is, have you seen all 10?
I have. As of today,
Perfect.
I saw Zone of Interest. I didn't see it for a while because Matt said I wasn't, not that I wasn't allowed to, as if he's like telling me what I can and can't see, but he was like, you're not going to enjoy it. See
I know
something
what
else.
you don't like.
And he was like, if we're going to go to the movie theater and like see a movie, there's other things I want you to see first. And today, I mean, I pushed for Argyle, and he was like, listen,
yeah.
Agent
I want to
Argyle.
see Argyle
I
so
was
bad.
like, look, Ciarra, I know you're not going to love
There's
Zone
cats.
of Interest.
There's Ariana DeBose. Like,
I do think we should go.
Yeah.
Let's wait a week for Argyle. And now she's ragging on me because apparently I'm an Argyle hater.
You are. Everyone's an Argyle hater
It
perception.
has a 36. I'm like, yeah, and it has Ariana DeBose and a cat.
I know.
Listen.
But, like,
Let
I
women
think
breathe. I'm
with
totally
Zone of
kidding.
Interest, I was like, you weren't a huge fan of After Sun.
No.
You weren't a huge fan
I don't
of
love
Past
and
Lives.
I know that this kind of what I'm saying is confusing, but I don't love movies who try to outsmart me and try to make me feel like I'm dumb.
Was Zone of Interest your least favorite Best Picture nominee?
It wasn't, actually.
Okay, then what was?
It wasn't. So should I go
bottom.
from 10?
From the bottom.
So in number 10, I wrote down my number 10 is like 3 stars. Like I don't rate movies, but like if I had to, 3 stars. So
I'm
like
still campaigning to get you on Letterboxd.
I just have so many opinions, but also don't have any opinions. I'm like, everyone did great, so it's 5 stars, but it's also 1 star. So maybe in the middle, I'll do a lot of 3 stars. Is Anatomy of a Fall.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I know that's a hot take. I know Arno's gonna like banish me
Yeah,
forever.
Arno's gonna
Don't let Arno watch
obliterate you.
this. Number 9, I have Past Lives as well, which I feel like is a little like, am I even an actor? Because all my actor friends love Past Lives, but I just didn't connect to it. Number 8 is Zone of Interest. So that's where it ended up. So I really did like it. I just didn't see it in the ways that I feel like it was supposed to be seen as we had our conversations about it.
Very deep conversation.
Very deep conversations.
Ooh.
Yes. On the subway. It was great. Number 7 is Killers of the Flower Moon. I loved it. Again, we're very close to everything being 4 stars in my list. I loved Killers of the Flower Moon. I thought Lily Gladstone was great. I thought the movie was great. It was just a little whitewashed to me. A white person. It was a little whitewashed, and I know that a lot of people have that opinion, and I wanted it to go deeper, I guess. Deeper, as in the 3.5 hour-long movie wasn't long enough. Number 6, I have Oppenheimer. I loved Oppenheimer. I love when men make things go boom, but it just wasn't my favorite out of everything else. Number 5 is The Holdovers. I loved The Holdovers. I loved the characters within The Holdovers.
You love Christmas movies.
I love. Listen, it's kind of a Christmas movie. It's got it in there. It's it's not quite, but yes, sure. I love Christmas movies. And I especially love the characters in it. I love when male characters are not like the stereotypical man, and I feel like that was
not Ken.
Not Ken, but like
there's no Ken.
that's what movie. That is. Going back, that is what made Ken so lovely,
the
was seeing him be a man but still be vulnerable. I was like, yes, that's what it is. Number 4, I have American Fiction. I just swapped number 3 and 4 as we were sitting here. I know, little arrows and everything. Loved American Fiction. I heard you earlier on your other podcast be like, Sterling K. Brown. I love Sterling K. Brown, and he was a standout for me in this movie. He was phenomenal, and he is always phenomenal, and I could just watch him. He should have a podcast reading bedtime stories. I would fall asleep to that. Not in a creepy way at all. He's just great.
It's just a little creepy.
It's not creepy.
Just a little.
It's Sterling K. Brown. It's not creepy.
Sure.
Number 3, controversial, I have Maestro.
Incredibly based. Incredibly good. Amazing.
Okay, I thought you said
Amazing.
biased. I was
No,
like, what?
no.
Carrie Mulligan could also read bedtime stories, and I would be happy with it.
In The Voice?
In-
Darling. Ooh.
She is a
I can't do
force,
this.
and I know that she gets nominated frequently, but I feel like the industry just does not understand the jewel that they have with her. She's just everything. And number 2, I have Poor Things, which is another movie Matt said I wouldn't like. I proved him wrong.
You watched the trailer and went, that looks stupid. I watched the trailer and said, this looks like my favorite movie of all time. And you watched the trailer and you said, that looks dumb.
I forgot I said that.
That looks so stupid.
It did.
I'm gonna hate this. And then I watched it and I was like, oh, like it has the things that you thought you didn't, you weren't gonna like, and then you liked it. So
I don't love, for many reasons, I don't love like hypersexualization and like when women are babies and like all of that stuff. Specifically babies. I will die for Emma Stone. I love her so much. I don't even want her to read bedtime stories. I just want to talk to her in real life. I wouldn't fall asleep if she was talking to me. I would stay awake to listen to all the amazing things she has to say.
You would like prepare pastries with Emma Stone.
Yes, I have very few actors I would want to make sandwiches with, and she is one that I would want to open a sandwich restaurant with.
Yeah, you could just stand side by side and do some sandwich artistry.
Yeah,
Subway.
I think she's great.
Eat fresh.
Eat fresh.
Eat fresh. Yeah, there you go. And number 1, of course, I have Barbie because it is my favorite of the year. I will say it's a very even year. There has been years where I've absolutely hated my number 10 and absolutely adored my number 1. My first watch of Barbie, I did really like it. Second was when I decided it was phenomenal. And it will be there forever. That is a 5 out of 5 for me. It is the most I've ever seen myself represented in a movie. And I'm 24. Feels a little strange. I am white, though, so I guess I do probably have more opportunity to do that than anyone else. But, there is that.
Well, that is Ciarra's top 10 preferential ballot. Matt and I will update ours on each episode as we watch them until we get through all 10. So technically, we all have the same number 1 movie at the moment with Barbie.
Yeah.
It's the first one. That's a virtue of it being the first one.
Listen, it's also because it's your number 1.
Yeah. Sure.
Well, for a little spoilers out there, our next episode's going to be the holdovers, and I'll let you be safe to know that Barbie will still be my number 1 after next episode. So for everyone out there, consider dropping a like, dropping a subscription, because we're going to be doing this for all 10 Best Picture nominees, 2 a week, leading all the way up until the Oscars. But until next time, my name's Dyl.
And my name is Matt, and
my name's Ciarra.
And this is Fantasy Filmball.